So we're back down today. I've just sanded and put a little bit of fairing compound on the fiberglass repair that we did last time. That's looking really good actually. I'll show you a picture of that now. I've mixed my own fairing compound using the West system, the West epoxy, with a fairing compound filler that you add to it. Again, mixed it until it was kind of like peanut buttery type, basically type like filler. It ended up looking exactly the same. I couldn't really tell any difference. So I just added that material in until I got the consistency that I wanted, and then I sanded the face that I was applying it to, and then I've just put a bit on and I tried to make it as level as I possibly can. Probably just need knocking down a little bit in a couple of places, but yeah, really quite pleased with how that's turned out. It's looking really good, and it feels really solid when you knock on the actual repair, all around the repair. It sounds like the rest of the hull, so I'm happy with that. I feel like we've got a solid joint between that epoxy and the rest of the boat. So we're happy with that. So we're going to move on to a bit of another project, and that's in Catherine's room. So this window here, we've had a little bit of trouble with this window ever since we actually bought this boat. Now, when Bavaria built them, they used a neoprene gasket around the windows. So these windows essentially have two seals. They've got the rubber seal, and they're a Lewmar hatch, by the way. They've got a rubber seal that sits in the actual aluminium frame, in the part that you actually open. So if I just open the window, there's the perspex, and that pushes against a rubber gasket seal that's in the aluminium frame there, and that's actually fixed in with an adhesive, I'm assuming some sort of sealant, into the frame itself. So if you have problems with these windows, this is, well, the first thing to always check is that the actual face of this window is clean. That's the #1 culprit for leaking. So it relies on that face being absolutely spotlessly clean, and as it compresses down against the rubber seal, that is essentially what creates you a seal. So if you've got any dirt on these faces, it can leak, and it has. We've seen that. So we try and make sure that that is spotless first. The second problem, I think, isn't actually the rubber seal itself. I actually think it's the way that they fix them in, because if it's done like our boat, then behind this plastic, just take that off, you can see that there's lots of screws here. Now, when we bought the boat, a lot of these were loose on several of the windows, so we tightened them up, leak went away. Now, obviously, over time, it's compressed that material as much as it possibly can within an inch of its life, essentially. And now we've come to the point where really it's not sealing as it should, and we do tend to get a little bit of a weep down in this corner. So what my plan is today is to unscrew this from the outer frame. So this is the inner frame. This piece actually is the outer frame. This is like a piece that sits around the edge, and I'll show you that in a second. So we're going to start undoing that, and then once we've got it undone, we will clean off that surface, and then I'm going to use some Bitrol, I think you pronounce it Bitrol, like tape, but I've got it in a tube this time. So I've used that on a lot of sealing things on the boat, particularly where you want to take them off. So you could just slap a load of Stickerflex or Sikaflex or anything of those kind of materials and sealants on these, but you ain't going to get the window out again. So for bedding in hatches and windows and things like that, then this is actually a much better material, because it doesn't actually set. It forms a watertight bond. Well, it forms a watertight gasket. It doesn't form a bond. That is the key. It doesn't actually dry and stick to the surface. So it essentially creates a gasket like we've got on the inside, and then stick the two together, and that's how you get your watertight seal. So for hatches and things that don't really move, that's the one to use. So enough chatting. Let's get this off and let's have a look at what we've got to deal with here. That cracking you can hear is actually the fiberglass. That isn't the window. It's just the fiberglass. It's just, that's all it is. There's a lot of bloody bolts in the damn thing. And there you go. So as you can see, there's actually nothing that holds this. It's just a frame, and that's how it obviously puts the pressure down onto the window. So the bonded pretty well actually. Oh no, it's going. It's going. I'm going to go and take it out from the outside. And now I've got to be really... I've done a few windows before on the other boat, never on this boat. And obviously with aluminium, you can sort of see this sort of shape. But aluminium's soft, so you have to be really careful. You don't really want to go and grab this window now by the back and just try and rip it out. We're going to have to try and gently kind of tease it out. What I might actually do is open it, if I can, still, and just give it a little bit of a push on the frame here. I'm hoping it is just generally just a little bit stuck. But what I wouldn't want to do is push hard here because I could distort the frame. And I learned that the hard way with the first set of windows that I did. You do have to be really careful. It's going. There we go. It's gone. So you just want to make sure that, as I say, these aren't twisted and And there's the gasket. So as you can see, basically that's what it started life as, and it's been squished to within an inch of its life. Yeah, it's not going to really work, is it? So let's get it cleaned up. So what I've just been doing is been working around the edge with a flat blade and just basically pulling the old sort of neoprene foam sticky nastiness off and just kind of cutting. You do have to be careful because if it's aluminium, it's really soft. That's obviously left me with this piece that's kind of stuck in the middle now. I couldn't really think of another way to do that. I tried a chisel, that didn't really work, so the flat blade brought it off much easier. So I've just need to go and clean it now with some, get the solvent off basically, and then I can apply my new sealant. So, and to get these off, that one's a little bit loose actually. To get these off, these are, on this model, there's a Allen bolt with a nut that's stuck in the actual perspex mounted. So there's 3 of those and you just wind that out and away you go, and then you end up with that. And the reason I've taken the perspex out is just in case the solvent, the cleaner, does any damage to that. It's not going to do any damage to the aluminium, but I definitely don't want to like frost the glass or anything. So yeah, so I'm going to clean that up now, and then we're ready to apply some new and stick it back in. Right, so I've spent quite a bit of time cleaning this, and I've really cleaned it. I've been really careful to clean it up and just make sure that there is no sticky stuff left on it. It's got a little bit of corrosion here. Don't know if you can pick that up on the camera, but there's a little bit of corrosion there, and that's where it's been welded together, I guess. So how did I clean it? So I cut along the edge with a knife and kind of tried to peel the stuff off. So that was the first. I tried a chisel, just very carefully pushing the chisel along the edge, and it didn't work really. It wasn't sharp enough. So I got myself a Stanley blade, slid the Stanley blade in very flat, and then just kind of peeled it off. And then just, you have to be really careful around these sorts of pieces because they are slightly raised. So that's what I did first, and then I've cleaned it with the sticky stuff remover. There's a little bit actually just there, look. Clean it with sticky stuff remover, and what's weird about that stuff is when you actually start cleaning it, the remaining bit of rubber foam stuff actually starts to expand, which is a bit odd. So you feel like you're not getting anywhere, but actually you are. It just does take a while. So I've cleaned that. I've acetoned the outside of the boat and made sure that that edge is clean, and now we're ready to put our Arbo stuff on. And I've cut the end of this, and I'm going to put a thick bead in that groove all the way around, and then obviously when I press it down, that should then squeeze out both sides. So I'm going to go quite thick with it in an attempt to, as I say, try and seal it, because I don't really want to take this off again. So that's the plan next, so we'll do that. Okay, got myself a really fancy gun. Okay, I think that's ready to go. Okay. Put it on here first. Okay, that comes out quite nice. Right, it's actually much easier to use than my other one. I'm doing the bottom edge first. I know that sounds a bit weird, but I'm just trying to sort of get my pressure right with the gun and trying to get a nice sort of steady bead. And I'm thinking if I do the bottom first and I've had a little bit of a practice, so every time I get round the other side, the gun's actually really easy to use. I've had a couple of these in the past and they haven't been very easy to use at all, but this one actually is pretty good. I'm just going to have a look on the outside, let's go. Can you see it's coming out? This is good. This is what we want to see. I can trim that off after. That's solid already. A little bit not solid in that corner though. Right, I'm going to start tightening down there, and if that doesn't work I'm going to put some more in that corner. Right. Yeah, I think that's just a bit of what's going on there. It's just moved out a little bit. I'm trying to get rid of it there. Get rid of it there. Okay. Right, let's go in there. Right, one on the bottom. Okay, we've got it now. Just try and clamp it in a couple of different places around the frame. And then we'll go and have a look, and then what we'll do is we'll work our way around just tightening it up. I guess we're slightly more at the bottom because there's an extra two there where the join is on the outside. That makes sense. So there's an extra two there as the crossover is on that piece. So that's where you've got to, and then you've got an extra two there because that's the joint on this piece. Otherwise it's exactly the same. It's by the hinges and on the ends. So that makes sense now. I was a bit confused. I was thinking, hang on. But yeah, that's why. Yeah, there's no drill holes there. That's why they didn't go in. So, okay. I don't think I want to tighten that any tighter just now. Let's check we've got the same sort of tension on each one. I am calibrated to several newtons. Yeah, it's squeezed out nice, that. Okie dokie, so I think I've got to just give it a bit of time now. I think it doesn't set. That's the thing, it doesn't set, but it will form a skin. So anywhere where it's kind of exposed to the outside, it will form a skin, and that's the bit that then I can cut off. So I don't really want to tighten that down anymore now. I think that's absolutely fine. We'll let it go off. I'll put the glass back in, otherwise we're going to have a wet back cabin. And then I'm going to leave it. And then the next time I come down, I'll just cut it off with a Stanley knife, and it should leave a nice edge. So we'll see what happens next time. When you're putting the window back together, just make sure you put the little plastic things in here before, that needs to tighten up, before we put the piece in this way, otherwise you can't do it. So let's just tighten that up first. So this is what I mean. So if the window's a little bit kind of loose, what you do is you just very carefully just nip them up, just a tiny bit each one, just a little bit. Oh, the tool's stuck in there. Just a little bit, because what you don't want to do is overstress the hinge. So if you get them too tight, you know, and you want them to hold themselves up, but if you overstress, you can see the pressure that it puts on these fittings. So just be careful with it, but it's not difficult. It's just a case of just nipping them up a little bit until you're happy that it stays where it should. And then once it does, just make sure everything is in line. And again, it should close nicely. I mean, you want a bit of friction against here, but again, you just want to have a look at everything and just make sure it's not overly tight. It's not, you know, these aren't being stressed, because that could mean that something's not quite in line. And if that's the case, just disassemble, kind of open it and close it, and just let it kind of sit where it wants to sit, and then start nipping it up bit by bit. But realistically, it should. They're pretty robust. I've never really liked these that are glued on. I've got to say, I think the ones that have a proper catch on it are probably a little bit of a better quality fitting than this type. But 20 odd years old, so can't really complain. And hopefully that has fixed the window.